Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of Health Declassified. And this is the show where we uncover the truth behind health and wellness. We do that by bringing you interesting and expert guests, and today is certainly no exception. But first, let's introduce co host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, do have another very special guest with us today. And we are so privileged to welcome Deborah Kadagian. Hello, Deborah. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Excellent. So let me give you a little bit of a background on Deborah. She's a licensed psychotherapist and is certified in psychedelic psychotherapy. She's also been a certified holistic health practitioner since 2007, specializing in Ayurvedic health counseling, and is also the author of the book, The Alchemy of Grief. So today she's here to chat with us about psychedelic healing, grief, and spirituality. And I can't wait to delve into this. So, Deborah, can you tell us, first off, what is meant by psychedelic psychotherapy?
Well, the psychotherapy part comes when somebody is either planning on having a plant medicine or psychedelic experience, and they want to do a little bit of prep, understand what they're heading towards, get the set and setting properly situated in their mind.
Mhm.
And then because it's not legal here in where I am, I don't sit with them during it. They either go to Costa Rica, Mexico, Peru, and then they come back to me, and then we do the integration work. And the integration work is basically taking what they had during their experience, during the psychedelic experience or the plant medicine experience, and unpacking it, seeing what symbols came through for them, what messages came through, what might have looked like a hellish experience is really positive in terms of like breaking down certain parts of their psyche that are in the way of ultimately being the most authentic person that they can be. So it encompasses a lot, but basically, it's working with the person before they go into a psychedelic experience and then working with them after it. Ideally, someday when it's legal, I can also be with them during the experience, if that's what I would choose to do. Probably my job is mostly for before and after.
Excellent. So, so we'll get into this because I have a question about ayahuasca, and I was wondering if that's one of the psychedelics that you are familiar with and that
Yeah.
people go to places like Peru and Costa Rica to experience. So are there others though? Are there others that,
Yeah, the one that I have been working with the most lately, and it's part of what my foundation is going to be based on, is iboga. Um, it's also referred to in a different chemical substance as ibogaine.
okay.
And it's getting a lot of press lately because a lot of veterans are going down to Mexico to experience ibogaine for um, addiction, post-traumatic stress disorder, neurodegenerative disorders, traumatic brain injuries, Parkinson's, all kinds of different uh, things that happen in the brain. And the results from these ibogaine clinics is just phenomenal. And so the work I've been doing mostly lately is with iboga, but yeah, I mean ayahuasca is a big beautiful healing plant. Psilocybin, the mushroom
Hmm.
experience is also a beautiful experience. Some people put ketamine in the classification of a psychedelic experience, and that's the one that is legal here.
Right.
Hmm.
It's not quite the same as some of these natural plant medicines, but can be very helpful.
Mhm.
What else? There's MDMA, which is
Hmm.
also one that was trying to get through the FDA. It didn't end up passing, but maybe it will in the future.
Okay.
Um, but mostly ayahuasca, psilocybin, and iboga are the three main. There's definitely more than that. The Bufo, the 5-MeO DMT is the short acting, like 15-minute experience that catapults some people into heaven, a very God experience.
Mhm.
Um,
And,
so yeah, I've worked with all of them.
and maybe we can have you talk about some of the experiences people have, because people who've never experienced psychedelics before have no idea what we're talking about. But during what do you call them, a session or an episode, what exactly can a person experience? Because you touched on, some people experience absolute hell and others experience something beautiful. Can you talk us through what some of those experiences are?
Um, well, it can be different for everybody,
Yeah.
and each experience is also different. It's why
Mhm.
some of the retreat centers in Peru will have 3 different ceremonies within the 10-day retreat. And one of them might be that really difficult, challenging kind of hellish experience. And then the next one is very loving, feeling held by an unconditional love. So
Mhm.
they can be all, there is no one kind of like, this is what it is. I kind of liken it to dreams, because it's
Hmm.
like you can have a dream and think, where did that come from? It's a crazy, wild nightmare. Or you can have a dream where you were visited from somebody that passed away and they were just there with you, so alive. And so those are similar experiences as what can happen in a psychedelic experience. I mean, people who don't do psychedelics in my therapy practice, I often ask them a lot about dreams because it's working with your deeper psyche. Um,
Okay.
so your question was, what can a typical experience be? Ayahuasca is a different experience than iboga, is a different experience than bufo, which is the 5-MeO DMT. Ayahuasca um, is considered an spirit. She is referred to as Mother Ayahuasca or Grandmother Ayahuasca, and often people are visited by her after they ingest the brew. There's a female spirit that kind of comes in and then gives you what you need to experience to evolve, to
Mm.
remove obstacles that are in the way of being your most authentic self and kind of what you came here to accomplish as a human being. And sometimes that experience is tough. I know some people who feel like they were crawling through hellfire and people were dying left and right on them, or they were about to die. And then when they finally come up and out of the experience, they're so grateful and so happy to be alive that it gave them this renewed feeling of life is so precious, life is so important for me to be here. um, and then maybe they have an experience 2 nights later where they just felt a lot of love around them. And or some people under ayahuasca, they kind of go out into the universe and visit planets and have some really abstract experiences. um, Ibogaine is very a different experience. It's a very rooted experience, and you sort of get very rooted in who you are, and it becomes you. So anything that you have deep down inside of you is going to become known. And they liken it to a life review. Have you ever heard that phrase
Mm.
when people have had a near-death experience and they go
Yes.
through this life review and they know how other people felt when they hurt them or vice versa? So iboga is a similar experience.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, It's very rooted in, and if you open your eyes, you're completely in the room. You're not off into like a cosmic world necessarily. And when you go to these clinics for addiction or, for something specific, you're getting a very deep life review, and it lasts for a long time, which is why a lot of people seem to hesitate towards that particular psychedelic, because it's a good 24-hour experience.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're up through the whole night, and I worked on a retreat in Costa Rica this past February, an iboga retreat, and they're up the entire night, and the next day is sort of called Discovery Day, and you're still a little bit under the influence of it, and just kind of it's a lighter experience the next day, but it's still in you. And then finally the next night you tend to be able to go to sleep. But in the Ibogaine clinics, you could be up for 36 hours.
Wow.
It's an intense experience, but excuse me, so incredibly powerful. And if you read some of the testimonials of particularly veterans that have gone down to these clinics in Mexico, it's absolutely life-changing. And it's not like where you have to do it multiple times. Like, you can literally do it this one time, and it just changes something in the brain chemistry and heals. So I think it's going to be an incredibly important medicine in our future.
Mm.
Wow.
So
Question.
Yeah.
being one of those Kathleen referred to as never having tried anything psychedelic and being totally against it, from my conservative Anglo-Saxon law-abiding background, although I am a rebel in other ways, political, always been totally put off anything. Having been drunk a few times, I now don't touch alcohol, for instance,
I don't need.
or very, very rarely. My question, though, I've got another question, but what I was thinking about while you were talking, do any people experience long-lasting negative effects from any form of psychedelic treatment?
So I would have to say that if anybody does experience that, it's because of not being in the proper set and setting. So some people will feel like, oh, I'm going to order this off the internet, and I'm going to go to a wild, crazy environment, and I'm going to take this stuff. And then after it's over and they had a terrible experience, and then they don't go talk to anybody about it, and then the brain just starts looping around in the terrible experience, then yes, that definitely can be the case. I would say with pretty much certainty that if somebody is taking it seriously, like I'm not doing this for fun, I'm doing this
Sure.
to either heal something or grow spiritually or evolve, then they're preparing for, what their goals might be for it. What is your intention? Is the setting that you're going to safe? Have we vetted it to make sure that, you're going to be in a very safe environment? And then afterwards, integrating the experience. So even if the experience was difficult, I would say that that is so valuable when I, as a therapist, will work with somebody who had a difficult experience. Once they start understanding it and integrating it, it helps them grow so much. I mean, we grow from difficult experiences
Oh, for
more
sure.
from easy experiences. So in answer to that question, I would say no, you don't have a lasting effects negatively if you've done it in a way that has reverence for the medicine, and you're making sure that you're well cared for and supported, and you're following a certain protocol.
I have to say that
Okay.
I did experience ayahuasca. I went to an ayahuasca retreat several years ago. In fact, I went twice. Um,
What?
it was a beautiful experience, but I mean, I absolutely agree with you. You have to be careful where you go. You want to go to a very reputable, retreat. And these are done by shamans, very, very highly experienced shamans that guide you through the whole process. And you have to prepare your body before you go to these retreats because there are some contraindications
Oh,
by
sure.
taking some of these vine medicines. And I always refer to it as a medicine. I know that kind of rubs you, Peter, but it is a medicine.
Yeah,
It is. Anything is a medicine and anything is a poison. It just depends on how we
that's
take
right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wind Kathleen up by referring to them as mind-altering drugs. So yeah,
it. I never use it as the word drugs ever for
I
them.
know.
I know, but I remember having my own experience, having to prepare for a month before going to the retreat. I know that salt was contraindicated. You couldn't take
Eh,
any salt whatsoever. Any oils, so like even in salads, olive oil was out of the question. Any oils whatsoever. It was just lemon juice and lime juice and very, very bland food. Yeah, you really had, and no pork at all.
Mhm.
You just had to really prepare. But if you went through with that, it was a wonderful experience, and I would
But you took it seriously.
absolutely. And I think I got a lot out of it. But it's not about me. This is about you, Peter. Do you want to
Oh,
yeah.
have
having
another
a
Yeah,
conversation.
something that I'm unsure about, and I'm showing my ignorance by asking this question, but I'm sure a lot in our audience are also unfamiliar with the term Ayurvedic practices in medicine. Could you enlighten us on that, Deborah?
Sure. Which it gets integrated in everything I do. I mean, I ended up segueing out of just being an Ayurvedic practitioner to getting licensed as a therapist for specific reasons. I did that. Um, but that's a really big question that you're asking because it's a science of life. Ayurveda means a science of
Okay.
life. Um, and it's a really beautiful way of looking at not just the physical body, but everything in nature, looking at it through these five elements, which is air, space, earth, fire, and water. And everything in existence is made up of these five elements, just different ratios. And for diagnostic purposes, it's broken down into doshas, which we call vata, which is air and space, pitta, fire and water, and kapha is earth and water. And so when we look at a person through the training that we learn in school, we can see which doshas they are and which one is out of balance. And it's all a law of opposites, just like if you're cold, you want to do something that makes you warm. If you're dry, you want to put on oil to make you less dry. So it's using the laws of opposites to balance. So if somebody has a lot of vata in them, which is air and space, they're very flighty, they can't sleep well, they're anxious a lot. These are signs of vata. So if that's air and space, then we would give them very grounding kapha-based type of foods and oils on their body and things to kind of bring them back down from flighty, anxious, light. That would be vata out of balance. If vata is in balance, it's a delightful energy. I mean, we need all of them to
Mm.
function. So that's a basic way of saying how we would look at a person when they came into your office and said, okay, how do I go about bringing myself back into balance? There's also how to balance the mind, if we're watching too much violence or reading things that are disturbing, listening to the news all the time, we're going to have a lot of rajasic activity in our mind. And in order to bring it to a sattvic level, which is a peaceful state of mind, it just makes such logical sense that, well, I can't put things in my mind that are constantly agitating me. And it could be as simple as someone is too competitive and then they're in competitive sports and it's making them not happier, it's making them more miserable because it's exaggerating what they already have. that can also agitate the mind. So the mind is looked at in a certain way, the body is looked at, and the spirit is looked at. So all three of these things are taken into consideration when you're working with somebody from an Ayurvedic perspective. And then they have the twice a year cleansing protocol called Panchakarma, which is something that I give myself. I go off on a retreat for a week a year. Ideally, it would be two times a year, but and that is a way of softening up all of the toxins that are in our digestive tract, because health begins in the digestive tract. When you have a healthy digestive fire, whatever you eat is going to be absorbed into the bloodstream and used for good, and what is not necessary is eliminated out. And the body has a very smart intelligence on how to do that if the digestive fire is good. If the digestive fire is too fast or too slow, lots of bad things start to happen in our digestion, and then spills out into not just our body, but in our mind and our emotions. So doing this panchakarma, which is a way to heal the gut back down to it's a really good, healthy digestive fire, is also one of the protocols to keeping ourselves balanced and healthy. And once you understand what your particular prakruti is, which is your doshic balance, it's not that hard to just be able to do that for the rest of your life. You're like, oh, this is happening to me. That means I need to do a little of this. It's bringing awareness to something that when I started learning about it, it was like, there's something inside of me that was saying, this is so logical. It makes so much sense. And you feel like you've known it all along, but you didn't realize it until someone pointed it out. And you're like, of course. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful science and philosophy of living your life.
Oh, interesting. Well, thank you for that. That's the first time I've had a full explanation, well, a detailed explanation of what it was. I'll be quite honest. I thought it was sort of woo-woo Indian stuff like transcendental meditation and that sort of thing. So yeah, pardon my ignorance, as I said. Right.
It's very, very scientific, really. It's a beautiful.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So Deborah, what was the background in you writing the book, The Alchemy of Grief? And do you want to hold up a copy, Peter? I think you have it there.
There it is.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that was it was pain. It was turning grief into pain. Grief into pain, grief into action. And I didn't plan it at all. So my son passed away in 2020. And he was very involved in the shamanic world, and it's one of the segues of me getting into it as well, way back. And when he passed away, I used to be a painter before I was becoming a therapist. I painted. I would never have called myself a painter. I went to a class up near where I lived in Connecticut once a week, and I painted with a group of people, and we did still lifes. And I loved it, but it was not, anything intense at all. It was just something nice. And I had lovely paintings of still lifes. Put the paints away. I go back to school. I do all this. Don't really think about painting too much. And then when he passed away, I had something just come over me that was out of my control. And I went out and bought canvases that were huge and paints, and took out all my old stuff that was packed away after we moved to where I am now. And I just started painting, and I was obsessively painting. I'm not an obsessive person really about anything. And I painted and painted and painted and painted, and they were all abstract. And I remembered when I was taking classes way back and people were talking about abstract painting, I remember thinking, I would never know what to paint abstract. I need to look at something, and my mind just wasn't like that. And all these paintings were abstract. And I didn't even really feel like I was painting them. And I did it for like 4 years straight, from 2020 to 2024. I was just, the days I wasn't working, and even the days I was working, I went home and I just painted and painted and painted. It was like nuts. It was crazy. And 2024, I kind of like took a deep breath and I'm like, wow, I have so many paintings. And I mean, I've had sold some, just not really marketing, but I was sharing them on Instagram. But most of them I just was stacking and collecting, and I backed up a little bit and I tried to start making sense of the past 4 years of these paintings. And as I started doing that, it's looked like it was becoming a book, like it could be a book. And that's how it happened. And it was just called The Alchemy of Grief, because I felt like all of the painting and the somatic experiencing on these large paintings helped alchemize this, what starts off as a very intense physical pain. And then it just kind of like starts moving and moving. And the book is not long to read. It's mostly experiential with the paintings. But that's basically my 4 years in a nutshell, is that book.
Okay, I've got to climb in, if I may, Kathleen. As I said to Deborah the other day, and as I said to you, with my conservative Anglo-Saxon Anglican background, my parents had always inferred that abstract painting was a total waste of time and not worth the effort, right? So I'd gone through my 70 odd years of life believing that, and never been interested in understanding, looking at, or certainly buying any abstract art until I got Deborah's book. And then I started going through that, and certainly with the assistance and the guidance of what she wrote about the paintings, they suddenly started speaking to me. So Deborah, thank you for for first time in my life, I begin to get something out of abstract painting, and some of them are absolutely incredible. And I've talking to our listeners and our viewers and our audience, you really need to get Deborah's book, because I'm convinced that if they speak to me as a illiterate artist or illiterate art appreciator, anyone with any knowledge will get a lot more than I did. So thank you for the book, Deborah. Back to you,
Thank
Kathleen.
you. I mean, that's means everything to me, what you said, because the reason why I ended up turning it into a book and publishing it was in the hopes mostly so that I could reach people who were experiencing grief and didn't know where to put it, but to be able to like reach somebody like you with just the artwork alone is like just the cherry on top of the whole
Okay. Well,
crazy.
I'm going to go back on what I just said and show you one painting, if I can get it right in the camera. Now that is Transcend, right? And when I saw that, I thought, well, I know exactly why she called that Transcend. And don't ask me to explain any more than that, but that is what I got out of it. So, and there's many more.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
Wow.
Also, we
That's
wove in for your viewers' information, I had gone on a few plant medicine retreats during that time, and some of those paintings came out as a result of those experiences. So,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
going to it's me again. I'm going to change direction very slightly, if I may, Deborah. And I lived most of my life in Africa. I've only been in Canada 21 years or so.
Hear your
And
accent.
yeah, and I just, having been exposed to African culture so much, and not only African culture, but white African culture, which is quite different to white North American culture and different to European, British culture, although I was born in Britain. I think that in many ways, Africans, which is the only real indigenous people I became acquainted with, have a different way of handling grief, which is perhaps a more honest way than we do in our Western societies. And certainly in Rhodesia, which I spent most of my life in, we had a terrorist war. We lost a lot of friends and family killed in the war. We also tended to handle it differently to what people do in North America. What's your experience? Because you've worked extensively with people from India and other cultures.
Um,
What's your opinion on that?
well, it's interesting about Africa because that's where the iboga comes from. It's in Gabon in the Bwiti tribe.
Okay.
It's in the Bwiti tribe in Gabon, and so it's a very, very communal experience doing the iboga. But I guess communal is the word, because
Hmm.
grief is experienced by the whole tribe, by the whole
Hmm.
culture. I mean, not culture, but like that's what's very different here is, sure, you definitely have your friends and supporting you, but there, everybody is grieving.
Hmm.
Like for the person that passed. It's not just the mother and the family, it's the community. So
Okay.
when I always say to my clients, when we share a joy, it's a joy doubled. And when we share a grief, it's a grief halved. And can you imagine if you're sharing grief with your whole community, with your whole tribe, it's a vibration that like kind of gets released among so many
Hmm.
people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think that's the biggest difference. And it's, you know, you keep saying the white Anglo-Saxon, of course I am too, and we are much more repressed in
Hmm.
our ability to emote. And I think that that's not something that African cultures have a problem with,
No.
or not even a thing. There's a lot of wailing and very strong movement of the grief through the body. So when you said, did you say, is it healthier? Yeah, I would definitely say it is a healthier expression because it's shared with the community and the tribe, and it is not alone. You're not alone in
Hmm.
it. You're
Yeah.
allowed, you're permission to scream as loud as you can, and hear that people will do it anyway, but it's not really done here.
Hmm.
No, that's right. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. We're running a little short on time, Kathleen.
Yes, we are, but I just wanted to ask one more question, and you touched on this already, but what types of mental health issues do psychedelic psychotherapy help? I know that we talked about depression. It could be PTSD. What else? What else could it
Well,
help?
I would say there isn't any that it doesn't help, but if you to list them, anxiety,
Hmm.
anxiety is worrying about something that hasn't happened yet.
Hmm.
And a psychedelic experience can give us the that connection to something so much greater, maybe a God experience or whatever you might want to call it, that gives so much knowing inside that anxiety just kind of can get released. Same with depression. There might be an insight on the reason for the depression during an experience, but that just all of a sudden things start clicking into place, and it's like, oh, that's why I've been feeling that way. Maybe I'm carrying something from my parents, or I'm carrying something from an ancestral trauma. Oh, my light just went off. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
we're running.
PTSD. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask you, first of all, how people contact you, but also if you can just talk to us a little bit about your foundation, the
Oh,
Solace
okay. I'll do
Foundation,
it
and
quick.
how can people get your book? So three questions.
I'm starting a foundation called Solas Foundation. Solas is the Gaelic word for light. And one of my issues, is this is putting my money where my mouth is that there's a whole lot of support for veterans to get ibogaine experiences, which is fantastic. But there are a lot of other people that are not veterans, and this is a very expensive treatment. And so if you're not in the top 1%, you're not going to be able to get this treatment. And so this foundation is going to be to help pay for people who can't afford to go but need to go. They'll apply for a grant, and we'll go through the process and be able to send them to clinics. So that's the Solus Foundation. As for I have a couple of websites. My therapy one is anandatherapyfl.com. Ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. That comes from my Ayurvedic background. And my art slash other website is just my name, DeborahKadagian.com. And there's a link to the book on there, but the book is on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon, even in Canada, because that's how I sent it.
Excellent.
Yes, I got it very quickly too. So thank you for that. Excellent. So thank you very much, Deborah. I mean, we could go on for hours on this subject because I find it fascinating, even though I have my reservations, personal reservations about it. I do think it's fascinating. And I think anything that can help people with issues, mental health issues, is worth pursuing. Very much so. I got to tell you quickly, very quick, we had Jill Sitnick on last year, I think it was, Kathleen, and she was a proponent of MDMA therapy, and she was working very hard. I don't know if you know her at all. She's quite active on social media, and she was hoping that the FDA would approve that, but as you're saying, it hasn't happened yet. Good.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It was a pleasure having you on the show. And until next time, thank you all so very much for tuning in, and we will see you again. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.